Hello again, guys. It's Carly from the Poetry of Nice, and I have finally a sales video for you guys. Finally got my budding gear and decided to do it. I'm just going to do Etsy and eBay in separate videos actually this time. What I'm going to do is do the last 2 weeks instead of what I usually do, which is sort of like just on a weekly basis, just because, you know, I have a few things to show you. And since there are more sales since over a long period of time, I'm just going to go ahead and divide that up. So this one will be the Etsy video selling vintage items on Etsy, and then I'll go ahead and do an eBay one as well and just make that a little bit more simple. Okay, so I'm just going to dive right in and show you what all I sold on Etsy in the last 2 weeks. That is March the 20th until today, which is April the 2nd. I sold a total of 25 items over that two-week period, and I will show you each item. I'll let you know what I paid for it, where I got it from, and then at the end I will let you know like my total cost of goods, and then like my gross profit and my net profit after all fees and things are taken into consideration for Etsy. So here we go. So the first thing I want to show you here is this vintage bird, it's like a mail or like paperwork organizer. It was in pretty rough shape, so I made sure to get as many photographs in there as possible. You can see it's rusted, it's a little bit bent, but it was very, very cool, and I'm glad that somebody decided to claim it. So I paid $1 for this at a yard sale, and it sold for $19.95 plus shipping. When it comes to Etsy, I pretty much always do buyer pay shipping. I almost never do free shipping. eBay is a little bit of a different story, but unless I tell you differently, the buyer did pay shipping on top of the cost of this item, or these items. Next thing, this vintage Western shirt, world's worst photograph, super blown out. I'm getting better, I swear. But as you can see, a really nice, almost like bib lace cut out detail, really pretty, almost has like a prairie type look to it. Obviously you use that keyword as well over here, but just a lovely piece. I paid 75 cents for this in the church rummage sale, like a filler bag sale, and it sold for $24.95. These I picked up only just a couple of weeks ago. They were just some vintage invitations, kind of cute. I paid 50 cents for the box of them. There was actually one invitation missing, so there was 9 invitations instead of 10, which of course I disclosed. And yes, paid 50 cents, and they sold within a week or two for $9.95. This is like a die cut piece of wall decor, obviously Ariel from The Little Mermaid. I paid 17 cents for this because I got a great big bundle of them, all Disney, for about $3. So divided out, they each cost about 17 cents. Tiny bit of damage up there. Actually, that happened at the yard sale. The guy had used her to stick up and advertise what he was selling, and when he took it down, he just like ripped it off, and oh gosh, about had a conniption, but that's okay. It's still sold, so fair enough. So 17 cents, and I sold that for $14.95. These Superman sheets, they were, I think it was a full bedding set, or maybe it was just a flat sheet and a pillowcase. That sounds about right to me. But I paid $2 for these at a thrift store, and they sold for $19.95. And obviously I always put in like fabric and stuff in there as well, because you can sell things even if they're not vintage on Etsy as sewing supplies, sewing supplies, like craft supplies, obviously sewing supplies as well, but pretty cool. These vintage Lee jeans, they're sort of like a stonewash, acid wash kind of thing. Very mom jeanish, elasticated waist, all the good stuff. Tapered leg. I picked these up for 75 cents at a rummage sale. They sold for $24.95. This I picked up at a rummage sale, oh my goodness, only a couple of weeks ago. It was a cross stitch piece. Obviously says "You Make My Sunshine," framed. Yeah, it was kind of cute. It cost me 50 cents. This kind of stuff always tends to sell for me, and it sold for $14.95. This is just, it was a very large pin, obviously from the World's Fair in 1982 in Knoxville. I paid 25 cents for this. I'm sorry, at a yard sale, sold for $6.95. So I don't do a lot of pins just because I don't enjoy it, but that was, I don't know, an exception to the rule, I suppose. Okay, picked this hat up at a thrift store. I paid $1 for it. It is just like an older 90s SeaWorld hat, and it sold for $14.95. this vintage like 1990s Winnie the Pooh sweater. Again, 75 cents at a church rummage sale. Fill a bag. Same rummage sale as the other items, actually. You know, cute, retro, whatever. And it's all for $19.95. And this actually went over to, I think, New Zealand, so they paid a little bit of shipping on top of that as well. But I think he was getting it for his partner, which is quite exciting. Hopefully she loves it. These boots I picked up for $1 at a yard sale. They took forever to sell. They went all the way through fall without selling, and I really thought they would go. They're not a fantastic brand. Jaclyn Smith, I think, is like Kmart or something. But I thought they were kind of cool with like the weave and stuff in them as well. Anyway, paid $1. They sold finally for $19.95. This is a little vintage half apron with like a fan floral design. Super cute. I picked this up with a whole lot of half aprons at an estate sale, so parted out. That each cost me about $1, and this one sold for $14.95. This little crop top, again, 75 cents, that same church rummage sale. It was from approximately the 1990s. It's just a plain black crop top. Nothing particularly exciting. There is the tag. Brand is nothing particular, but it's still sold for $14.95 plus the shipping. I loved this book. This cost me $1.60, $1.60 at an estate sale. I just thought it was really cool. It was like, it's 1952, and it was so 1950. So the little girl follows mommy around doing all of mommy's jobs, and then the little boy follows daddy around enjoying life with daddy. It was so very, very vintage 50s. But I actually sold it for $14.95, which is a lot more than I usually sell my vintage books for. I just thought this one was too cool to let it go for. That's my personal opinion that I, inflicted upon it, but I liked it, so I hung in there. And yes, and it sold for $14.95. Another little political pin. This was about 54 cents in a lot of vintage political pins, and it sold for $6.95. Some more. These are all Wilson related, just the two of them. This sold for $7.95, so it cost me about $1.08 in cost of goods there. These little sealed vintage, they were from, what were they, 1997, so they just scraped by as vintage on Etsy, the 20-year mark, and picked them up for 50 cents. Picked up a couple of packs at a Goodwill, I believe, and each of the packs is now sold for $9.95, so $1 into $20 essentially. This was a random find. Again, 75 cents, that church rummage sale. It was a cape. And it kind of screamed Sherlock Holmes to me, so I used that as one of my keywords, my costume and things like that. Had it up on both platforms and had interest in it in both Etsy and eBay, but eventually sold on Etsy. So I paid 75 cents and it sold for $39.95, and it was probably only up for about 5 or 6 weeks. Oops, I'm sorry. Guess who I like to watch on YouTube. Okay, this is just a lot of vintage stick pins. Pens paid $2.50 for like a little baggie of them. This lot here sold for $19.95. I do not find that Avon stick pins are worth doing individually. That's just more work than I think I'm going to get out of them personally. And then the same person actually bought these as well, which is another one of my vintage sewing pins made in Japan, or like corsage pins perhaps. So each box cost me 10 cents, and each box so far has been selling for $6.95. So that's just kind of going along there on Etsy for me. Some vintage Halloween iron-ons in March. I paid 25 cents a piece for these, and they sold for $8.95. Set of 4 rainbow mugs made in Korea. They were vintage. I paid 50 cents a piece, I think, so $2 for the entire set of 4. They weren't perfect, as you can tell, but they sold for $16.95 plus that shipping. This was just like a little doll pattern, whatever. A lady contacted me. It was in a lot of, as you can see, that probably shouldn't be there. It was in a lot of other 18-inch doll patterns, and the lady contacted me and said she had the other ones, but she really wanted this one, so I very happily sold this one to her. Paid 33 cents for it, and it sold for $4.95. Fair enough. I'm trying to get rid of all my sewing patterns, and I will not be going there again unless it is extraordinary. This is a vintage Brewster kitchen trivet, obviously cast iron. Paid 50 cents for this at a yard sale. Actually, the trivet was loose, like the tile part here, so I went ahead and like fixed that up, super glued it, did all that kind of stuff, and set it, and it sold for $12.95. And my final thing for the last 2 weeks on Etsy before I give you my numbers is this Beauty and the Beast book from 1991. I paid $1 for this at a yard sale, and it sold for $7.95 plus that shipping. Okay, so here comes the numbers. My gross profit this week for these 2 weeks, for Etsy were $379.75. My cost of goods, so everything I paid for everything I just showed you there, was $21.82. So after taking Etsy fees into consideration, and like listing fees, all those kinds of things, my net profit, and after cost of goods, of course, my net profit, everything I walked away with was $339.64. So not too bad. I haven't been feeding Etsy very well. I've been focusing on eBay a whole lot. So I'm quite pleased to see it still ticking over. But I will be putting some more effort in, particularly with vintage clothing. So we'll see how that goes. All right, guys, thank you so much. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more. Stay tuned for the eBay side of things for the last 2 weeks. And guys, just thank you and have a good week. I hope you have a great one. Bye.